We're good? Okay, good. To begin with, we'd like to welcome everybody out to the Pinal County Board of Supervisors special session dated March 28, 2024. By way of announcement, public announcement, we have our network that's down here at the county. So those that wish to view the session can go on their cell phones and go to the county website, but just don't use the network here. It's a VPN issue that we have internally. So for all of our employees that want to watch what the excitement of what happens here, or anybody in the public, that's the direction you need to go. So we'll begin our meeting now. And so first item on the agenda, first of all, I just want to express the gratitude to our board for, I was absent last meeting, and they continued on as normal. That should be like that, and so I appreciate their efforts and everything in continuing the agenda for the county. So our first item of business is an executive session for legal advice and contemplated litigation concerning a claim dated March 18, 2024 by Supervisor Kavanaugh. And so if I can get a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. So we're going into executive session, and when we come out, we'll take item number 2. Thank you. Is it going to be a minute? Nobody knows. All right, let's go ahead. Do I have a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Any second? A second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And so the ayes have it. So item number 2, discussion, approval, disapproval of the canvass of election results for the March 19, 2024 presidential preference election. Dana?
Good morning, Chairman Goodman, members of the board. Dana Lewis, Pinal County Recorder, here to present the official canvass of the presidential preference election for March 19th, 2024. You guys were presented with all of the documentation that is required by statute for the canvass, and I'm sure you've had time to review that. Some things to talk about in regards to this election. Members of the community have recently inquired why we even had a PPE. This is a state-level decision. Arizona Revised Statute 16-241 through 243 requires it. And it's a gentle reminder that it takes no less than 6 months to plan an election, and we were required to do so by law. Some may remark that there is only a 36% turnout of this election. I will counter that over 50,000 Pinal County voters participated in a successful election. Additionally, this election afforded us the opportunity to grow, learn, and exercise processes we had recently created to stress test programming, logistics, chain of custody, and final audits. However, every election has learning points. We're going to launch a boots-on-the-ground effort to review all of our polling places and design the most effective layout of equipment for Elections Day setup to increase productivity and decrease confusion. Poll worker training will include hands-on focus with our poll pads. As always, unused ballot reconciliation at the polls continue to be an uphill battle. Future ballots will be tabbed, stapled, perforated, and the tab will be sequentially numbered. Precinct 53, the Choo-Choo precinct, the Office of Emergency Management was on point, and the community reached out to thank us and our quick communications. We now know that we need wall tents in situations such as these. Early ballot early voting ballots audited daily with strict chain of custody, even amidst the late implementation of SB 1411. We have identified personnel resources will be needed to be amplified for the upcoming primary and general elections. Our pilot program to test the ability to bring back all of the election equipment provided an eye-opening experience. The cost to bring it all back election night could be determined exorbitant. We would need over 50,000 additional box trucks with lift gates that we don't even know on that short of time we would be able to acquire. Over 100 additional troubleshooters, additional cost and facility rentals, and the effect of poll workers needing to be there an additional 3 hours. We believe at this time the juice isn't worth the squeeze, but would offer up additional conversations regarding that. But we also realized that the GPS locks were a win. We were able to geofence and track the equipment, identify when they were locked and opened, and even when they were moved. In the past, there were major struggles with posting the election night results and uploading voter history from the poll pads. This was a concern, and it added changes in law, also required us to post late early ballots and provisional ballot numbers online. With improvements in staffed processes, we knocked it out of the park. Relationships with party chairs and community stakeholders allowed for the realization that not all live in the E- calendar like election officials do. So to better communicate, we will be sharing a version of the E- calendar with them to ensure our continued partnership going forward. A bipartisan hand count audit proved the tabulation to be 100% accurate. Post-election LNA was completed yesterday. Surveys are coming in from poll workers, observers, and election day workers, and we will compile them, and we're going to see where the hot spots are and report that to the board. Financial analytics will be provided at the next Board of Supervisors meeting. I would like to take this time to thank this amazing team of election officials who care about transparency and bringing trust back to our elections with an energy and enthusiasm to match my own. To the communications team, Office of Emergency Management, the amazing troubleshooters we have who help us with the heavy lift of educating voters and being there in a moment's notice. Also, everyone that has been praying and cheering for us in the background. I'll stand for questions.
Okay. Supervisor McClure.
So, Ms. Lewis, I noticed in the report, and from your last report, there were like 391 provisional ballots, and we discussed that last meeting. And I noticed in the report that it was, from recollection, because I can't pull it up here, but it was like 42 were approved and 300 and something were denied. Could you please explain that process?
An overwhelming amount of, Chairman Goodman, members of the board, Supervisor McClure, an overwhelming amount of the provisionals that were declined and not accepted were for P&D voters. Again, we'd been communicating up to this election, had done mass communication, social media, billboards, to remind people if they wanted to participate in the presidential preference election, they needed to be a registered Republican or Democrat. We still did have voters turn out at the polls who were registered independent or P&D or other that wanted to vote. And so those would have to be provisionals, and that ballot would not count.
And so when they're P&D independent or other, we still allow them to vote because...
Chairman Goodman, Vice Chair McClure, members of the board, we will never tell somebody no, they can't vote. Now, if their ballot is accepted is another statement.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Surtee.
Were there a number of overseas ballots, and did there seem to be a problem with them, and did any keep arriving afterwards?
Chairman Goodman, Vice Chair McClure, Supervisor Surtee, yes, we have a robust UOCAVA process. Those ballots go out either via mail overseas, email. I was not made aware of any problems, and actually those voters have the ability to still submit their UOCAVA ballots through the secure portal right up until 7 p.m. on election night.
Yeah, I'm not saying there were any problems. I was just curious because I know it seems like every general election there always is an issue with did the ballots get in from those stationed overseas. So you think that went smoothly as well?
Goodman, Vice Chair McClure, Supervisor Surtee, members of the board, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just a quick follow-up, but back to the provisionals, and I forgot to ask you. So many were P&D, other independent, and so there were like 40-something that were approved. Why were they approved? I mean, what would be the cause of those being approved?
Chairman Goodman, Vice Chair McClure, members of the board, what that looks like typically in those is there was a change, but they were still in the right precinct or polling location, or we had many that voted at choo-choo, but because of tribal addressing, it's a little bit more difficult to put those in the poll pad, so they vote a provisional, and then we accept them.
Okay, so there was nothing wrong. It was just that some issue came up, and they were approved. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Ms. Lewis. Last election cycle, Jerry Roll said there was a disparity in the canvass because it was filed prior to taking adequate opportunity to investigate any possible anomalies. That was in her report. And I think part of the problem was the polling place returns weren't reconciled. Tell me how you did that successfully this time.
Chairman Goodman, Vice Chair McClure, Supervisor Kavanaugh, members of the board. So I've previously stated that every election we get better. And in one of my previous statements, ballots not voted at polling locations must be reconciled. It's part of the official ballot report that gets returned. That is a heavy lift. We have poll workers who have been there since 5 o'clock in the morning, have worked a stressful day. They understand the scrutiny that we are all under, and then are required to count hundreds of ballots for return. On the flip side, once we receive them at Election Central, we do another audit of those. We have cleaned up that process, and with our new ballot order, we will be, like I said, tabbing, stapling, perforating, and sequentially numbering those ballots to make it easier for the poll workers.
So, but this time, were they balanced appropriately? Did the returns from the polling places, the numbers balance when your staff looked at them this election?
Chairman Goodman, Supervisor McClure, Supervisor Kavanaugh, members of the board, yes.
Okay, good. And then part of my concern is our office received emails from someone who's claiming whistleblower status inside the elections office.
Supervisor
with
Kavanaugh.
A concern.
No, we need to stay on focus with the canvassing aspect.
Well, the canvassing went through the tabulators.
So if you have a question regarding to the tabulators, things of that nature, I mean, we got to be careful because of, if I could turn to counsel on this one right here.
What I think the chairman is just trying to be cautious of is not to shed any more light or disparaging on a potential whistleblower that may be out there, whether or not those statements are true or not. I know that's one of the areas that he's trying to be very cautious of, and that's why I believe he was trying to direct questions specific to a tabulator or a process as opposed to an individual or anything of that nature.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You bet.
So this time around, we used tabulators, and the USBs were taken from the tabulators and put in a computer to count the ballots. Is that right? Where does the math occur? Chairman
Goodman, Vice Chair McClure, Supervisor Kavanaugh, members of the board, the process that you are explaining and trying to simplify is not entirely accurate how it's being described.
Well, correct me if you would, please.
So we have equipment. The equipment is tabulators. Ballots go through them. The information is put into them, and then it is put in a depository, which is the server. From the server, we download results. Those results are uploaded election night. That's what that process looks like.
Okay, and so the laptop computers that we talked about last go-around that were updated from Windows 7 to Windows 10, were those used in this process?
Chairman Goodman, Vice Chair McClure, Supervisor Kavanaugh, members of the board, You've asked multiple questions in regards to laptops. So which question are we identifying at this time?
So you have laptops that you used. You said you updated laptops last time from Windows 7 to Windows 10. Do you remember saying that?
Chairman Goodman, Supervisor Kavanaugh. Yes, sir.
Okay. What laptops are those, and what are they used for?
Chairman Goodman, Supervisor Kavanaugh, the laptop, if we're talking about the Gateway laptop, where the election night reports, the election night results are loaded, was updated. We also acquired additional laptops, which I discussed at the last meeting in regards to the Spanish translation.
Okay. Well, the ones you described for Spanish translation have the EVS 6.300 toolbox. Were those used this election cycle? Were the new computers that you discussed that were ordered February 6th, their purchase order went out, they were used in this election or no?
So,
I'm trying to figure out if we, Mr. Chairman, if you allow me, what I'm trying to figure out is if those old laptops that we've had for some time associated with the tabulators and equipment and software, those were used during LNA testing. Are those a part of the LNA testing? And if we use the new computer laptops, were those tested? Are they required to be part of the LNA testing process? And if they are, were they? If we used them without the LNA and the LNA is required?
so your question is, are those, what the process that you're using, those computers, have they been certified and approved?
Chairman Goodman, Supervisor Kavanaugh, members of the board, absolutely. It's required by statute.
Okay. And then they were also a part of the LNA testing process?
Chairman Goodman, Supervisor Kavanaugh, absolutely.
New computers were?
You've answered that question, right? And what was it?
Chairman Goodman, Supervisor Kavanaugh, new computers were recently acquired that... Hey, Jared. The Spanish translation laptops, they weren't part of this process. We just acquired those, correct? Yeah.
But were they certified before?
They haven't been used yet,
Oh,
Chairman Goodman, so
there you go.
we have not utilized those yet.
Okay, so that'd be in the next election site, and so I guess the follow up to that question is, we're still gonna, so that you're gonna make sure that process is done.
Chairman Goodman, members of the board, absolutely.
Okay,
Any part of the process that is required to be certified and go through a logic and accuracy testing, absolutely will.
okay, yeah, I think, for me personally, I think we've gone through a lot of efforts and everything to help kind of calm the situation with the public as a whole. And I think we need to be continuously going down that. And I appreciate some of the questions that you are asking, because we just need to make sure and verifying with Dana that we're continuing to be open and transparent. And we're doing everything that is possible to make sure that there's fair and honest elections and open and what's the word I'm looking for, Miller? Accurate, but then
Legal.
transparent, but accurate. Okay. So, did you have any other questions, Supervisor Kavanaugh?
The only thing is the old computers also had the Spanish translation program on them. Is that correct? You're not just translating a book. It's for the purpose of translating a ballot information into Spanish. So, did the old computers already include the Spanish translation program in them?
Chairman Goodman, Vice Chair McClure, Supervisor Kavanaugh, members of the board, I would like to get back to that question at a later time. And I do believe, because of the current investigation information, I think speaking more about something that I am not 100% to explain everything. I am not the expert from that situation. I would not do anything to bring any confusion or distrust to our systems by being inaccurate in anything I said.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You bet. Any other questions? Okay. Can we have a motion moving forward then?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the 2024 final presidential preference election official canvass results as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the ayes have it. And shoot, We're adjourned.
Successful election. Thank you, gentlemen.